Uncharted, Naughty Dog's iconic action-adventure series that adapts the cinematic adventures of Indiana Jones from its shootouts, fights, and puzzle solving in the interactive art form. It has won critical acclaim with critics and gained a huge following throughout two PlayStation generations, and I'm one of the many fans in the series ever since the release of Uncharted 2 Among Thieves. Well, I used to be a fan, until they start making the same game over and over and over again. Now don't get me wrong, Naughty Dog, the creators of Uncharted, are a top-notch studio that is filled with top-tier talent to create such amazing games. And I want to state that Uncharted games on their own are good games, with clear care and love put into it. Uncharted, for the three of you at the back, is a cinematic shooter that Sony loves to promote and sell millions of PlayStations on its own. It's easily Naughty Dog's most successful series, with overall sale figures of over 41 million, and only 15 million for these sales were only for Uncharted 4 alone. And there's a reason why people bought so much for Nate Drake, is that unlike Crash, Jak and Daxter, and Sony's greatest game, Way of the Warrior,
The mountaintop citadel in the Himalayas. It is at this citadel it is at this that the world
Welcome.
It is at this that the world
Filthy dregs.
It is at this that the world
If you're feeling suicidal, then you come to the right
It is
place.
August that the world
I'll fucking kill myself as well. Fuck you, I hate all of you.
Uncharted existed at the time of the mid-2000s when gaming desperately wanted to cater towards audiences that weren't into games because obviously more moolah. There's the popular trend of motion controls by making your game control a lot more easier with motion than just button presses on a controller. There are new applications available on the 7th generation of consoles to make it more of a multimedia device to watch movies and TV shows. But what makes Uncharted successful is that turning what simply is another run-of-the-mill third-person shooter and turning it into a cinematic action film that just happened to be interactive. Every level, cutscene, and set piece will be influenced by the modern filmmaking of today to give the feel of an epic summer blockbuster, but controlled by the palm of your hand. But an engaging story is necessary for that cinematic game hybrid to work. You need engaging characters. And what kind of characters would be better than a rugged treasure hunter?
Are you sure you want to be defiling your ancestors' remains like that?
You make it sound so dirty.
A clever reporter?
Oh, Elena Fisher. Last year's model.
That's cute.
And a likable con artist?
Isn't the beautiful and talented Elena Fisher?
Flattery will get you screen time.
It was an ambitious goal to achieve, but if Naughty Dog can conquer the genres of platformers, open world sandboxes, and kart racing, Naughty Dog can do anything. And they can, so they keep doing it more, until they went overboard and ruined it forever. Don't worry, I'll explain. Uncharted, like I said, is a good series of games that deserve its praise and fans. But recently, when I played them for what was originally planned for a multi-video part retrospective of the series with a heavy critique of each game, until I realized it was pointless. Uncharted, once you have a closer look, doesn't age well. And each game uses the same plot, gameplay, and set pieces from each other. Don't believe me? Here's a quick summary of each plot in each game. Uncharted Drake Fortune. Nate and Co seek out a treasure, but the bad guys want the treasure too, so they fight and eventually Nate won. But the treasure for some reason is either cursed or not worth it, so they abandoned it and conveniently lost the treasure as well as the location of it. But it's okay because at least they're alive and have each other. Uncharted 2, Among Thieves. Nate found a treasure, fought off the bad guys for it, and lost the treasure. And the same for Uncharted 3, 4, and the only one who's willing to change its ending is Lost Legacy, because hey, Chloe and Nadine has the treasure this time, but most of the plot is still the same. To be fair, Uncharted is not a plot-heavy game. Just like most of the weird subgenre of treasure hunting stories, only the use of the treasure is an excuse to get characters from one place to another. What really works for Uncharted is the character interaction and development that get people engaged with the story in the first place. It's great thanks to the smart, funny script alongside great voice acting that gave it such iconic moments.
Oh wait, this can't be right. We must have made a wrong turn somewhere. Hey, now what do you bet that will take us right into the boiler room? And from there, we're in. Yeah, in like Flynn, right? What? In like Flynn.
I don't get it.
Just give me a boost.
But somehow, even with great writing for our heroes, the villains of the games are horrible, and not the good kind. At best, you have either power-hungry warlords who wanted the treasure for power, and people who just want it for money. Yeah, that's it. I mean, the closest thing to a good villain is Ray from Uncharted 4, who wanted to have the treasure to prove himself for those who see him nothing as a trust-funded son of a billionaire, and ultimately jealous of Nathan's achievements. But no, instead of focusing on that, let's give a chunk of the cutscenes that could have been used for further character development and give it to this waste of pixels, so they can justify having her as Chloe's partner for Lost Legacy. Thanks, Nadine, for ruining the chance for the first decent villain in the franchise. But even with that, it's not enough to support a story that relies on overused tropes and storylines that even newcomers to the franchise would notice and quickly break all immersion. That's the root of the problem. All of the impressive set pieces, narrative design, and levels itself can only work perfectly together as planned for Naughty Dog if you play the game once and never play this game ever again. So for those who have great memories of Uncharted being the perfect blend of cinema and gameplay, replay the game, and then you realize this belief is far from true. Let's look at the set pieces. What is easily the most memorable part of Uncharted is the snowy train, the airplane crashing to the desert, and the convoy chase scene from Uncharted 4. These levels are clear high priority for Naughty Dog, as they are great at advertising the game at E3, commercials, and posters, just simply because they're awesome looking.
Hey, I'm Nathan Drake. If you're the adventurous type like me, then get in on the Subway Taste for Adventure for a chance to win epic trips and exclusive access to Uncharted 3. Get your code on 30-ounce drinks today. Subway, where winners eat. Now.
We all wanted the player to relive those iconic scenes in our favorite movies and see how fun it is for those who want to be these characters. It's pretty much the tagline of all licensed games anyway. But since Uncharted is aimed for the huge market of gamers and non-gamers, the chance of them screwing up those set pieces would be high. So for everyone to experience them, the set pieces have to be very scripted and only be given players few options for controls. At best, you occasionally jump, move around, or be given QTEs. It wouldn't be so bad for the gameplay if these set pieces are few and far between to mask it, but Naughty Dog is so impressive of its own work and encouraged by its critics and fans to add even more set pieces so much when the game gives you so little control, it might as well play itself. Once you notice it, the whole magic of it is gone, like learning the tricks of a magician. Once you see the inner workings of a magic trick, all tricks aren't impressive anymore. Now every time I see those set pieces, all I see is a collection of cutscenes with QTEs mixed in to mask it as gameplay. Now I know some people would argue that Uncharted is changing, especially with Uncharted 4 this time. This time you could play the game with new items such as a grapple hook. Naughty Dog isn't even pretending anymore, are they? And the level design is even bigger than ever. You can even play a level where you control a vehicle, so that had to mean something, right? Yeah, no. The idea of grapple hooks and even bigger level design should be enough to change up the formula, but it doesn't. The grapple hook is mostly used for platforming to reach jumps or scaling up or down a cliff. Yeah, you can shoot while grappling, but that's all it could offer. There's even a hook looking thing for Nate to stick onto a wall to platform. That's introduced like at the last few levels of the game. Why? All it does is just reinforce more of the tired, overused mechanics of Uncharted, such as the basic ass climbing that is so shallow, but Naughty Dog for some reason or another keep putting in the levels every 2 seconds and never changes it at all. And with the ridiculously long 15-hour-long story mode, stretching out levels and using repetitive shallow mechanics like that stupid block puzzle where you use a large object to get you and your partner to climb up, is a rip straight out of The Last of Us so blatantly and just copied and pasted 100 times throughout the game. But one mechanic I loathe the most, surprisingly many people tend to forget. Remember the PSX conference in 2015 where it shows off for the first time in the series dialogue options? People are losing their minds over this, the potential to change so much of the story, and this mechanic can actually get people to replay the game again, which you couldn't in the previous game. But somehow, Naughty Dog dropped the ball again, as these supposed dialogues options aren't branching paths to change the story. No, all it does is at best give Nate an alternative dialogue instead of the default. That's it.
Come here. Now hand me the artifact.
Do you know how many artifacts I've collected over the years? You're gonna need to be more specific.
Let me see if I can clarify.
It wouldn't matter if the story's good enough without it, but no, it's probably the worst story in the series. Change my mind. I know Uncharted 3 is considered the worst with all of the plot holes and horrible written villains and ultimately not making any sense, but even with that, I can see the story fitting well as an Uncharted game because it's still about an adventure. It's still fun to play, and Uncharted 4 isn't. Uncharted 4's made the biggest mistake by taking itself way too seriously. The plot about finding treasures now has taken a backseat, and the focus is melodramatic drama between Nate and Elena. Because that's what I want to play Uncharted 4, the video game adaptation of a bad BBC drama.
Look, it's gonna sound crazy.
Try me.
For starters, this is Sam. Sam Drake.
Fuck you, I hate all of you.
And this is the introduction of Nate's long-lost brother Sam Drake, who appeared because the writers had ran out of ideas and finally jumped the shark. You'd think I would hate Sam for coming in out of nowhere and becoming one of the main leads without earning it. But hey, I like Sam. He's actually funny and fun, unlike his now serious and dull brother who wanted to leave his past and move on. Rafe, our villain, is actually a delight, seeing him as a horrible, arrogant yuppie, desperate to get the treasure, and voiced by the talented Warren Cole, easily made him the best Uncharted villain by far.
In a few moments, we'll begin bidding on our next item, an inlaid wooden crucifix from the Trotty State.
Well, I know when I'm a third wheel. You two kids have fun tonight.
Hold on, Sully. How'd you find out about it?
It? What it is that, Rafe? Nadine, I think your partner here has had too many Bloody Marys.
Cut the bullshit, old man. I don't know how you scammed your way in here, but if you think about bidding on Avery's Cross, I can tell you exactly how you're going to be leaving in a goddamn
Rafe.
pot. You get my point.
And he could have been better if he wasn't set to failure by her. Oh god, I gotta talk about Nadine. Okay, she's a leader of a mercenary group that Elena once said helped warlords get into power and that caused the death of thousands of innocents who was hired by Rafe to protect and scavenge for the treasure. Basically the excuse of hundreds of enemies to shoot at. She's the stereotypical tough girl stereotype given the cold, ruthless, and unappealing personality that doesn't bounce well with other characters. She had like 2 boss fights that are basically just set pieces as well, because that's all can Naughty Dog do these days. You can't even win the first one, so why bother having the fight at all? It might as well just be a cutscene instead. It doesn't even change anything. The second boss fight is even more laughable, as with both Nate and Sam fighting her, you can't even do a scratch on her unless you do what the game wants you to do. And after this pathetic excuse of gameplay, the story wants to make Nadine seem sympathetic? After Nadine is treated horribly by Rafe and being betrayed by her own team, you want me to feel sorry for her? Really? The same person who wanted to kill Nate and Sam the entire time, and her backstory is creating wars that kill thousands for cash? And now, at that moment, you want me to like her? No! I rather would have Eddie, Harry Flynn, or even Lazarevich to become good guys over her any day. Because those guys have a thing called being interesting or engaging. I would rather see Chloe Howard with the Vulcan clone than Nadine. So yeah, if you can't tell, I'm not a fan of Uncharted 4. Uncharted 4 to me is the idea of Naughty Dog using every interesting idea that could have worked well, but for some reason abandon it because they're afraid of going too far from their comfort zone. The dialogue options, the new weapons and vehicles, and even the story and the potential of each of those things to change it up and show innovation in this series are misused at best and forgotten at worst, as Naughty Dog is clearly tired from doing this and clearly running out of ideas to keep the concept fresh.
It's X to jump.
Right, which one's X?
Right thumb. Okay, run away from the boulder.
Why is the boulder chasing me?
Just run away from it.
I did nothing to this boulder.
Uncharted 4 is what's supposed to be at the time the last series to star Nathan Drake as the protagonist. And just like everyone, I assumed that Naughty Dog wanted out after this and would move on to other things. But how wrong I was. Yep, After more than a year of Uncharted 4, we get Uncharted Lost Legacy, a spin-off game starring Chloe Frazer. Alongside, are you serious? Of course, just like the development of The Last of Us, Lost Legacy was developed around the same time as Uncharted 4, making it more of a standalone expansion pass than an actual sequel. Think of The Lost Legacy as its own Majora's Mask to Uncharted 4's Ocarina of Time. A new story in a new location, but with a lot of reused assets to save time. But this game ain't no Majora's Mask, that's for sure. The game is a bit better than Uncharted 4. Thankfully, the game is only 8 hours long, just like its PS3 predecessor, which means no more padding and repetition, thank God. All I can say about Lost Legacy is that it's better than Uncharted 4. Lost Legacy's gameplay is basically the same as Uncharted 4. Large levels to roam around with a grappling hook with shooting and stealth and being able to drive cars. There's only a few new mechanics introduced, which is shallow lockpick system to be stealthy and get new weapons and items, and also a new silencer pistol, which actually makes stealth a lot more viable of an option this time. The biggest addition is the huge expansive level Naughty Dog shown off during marketing, where you can explore the huge levels to find towers to solve puzzles and open a gate. It's a really cool moment to see in an Uncharted game to experiment with such open level design before. It would have been a perfect hub world to use to connect with all the levels in the game to give it more of an organic feel and also keep the scriptedness as well. But no. Just like the Madagascar driving level, as soon as you open that gate, it's over and you never go back to it again. After all of that, it becomes another typical Uncharted game. Explosions, fistfights, cutscenes. Nadine's here, out of all characters, as a better option to become Chloe's partner. Of course, they don't like each other at first, but they soon to become friends around the end. Which is weird, seeing Chloe, who was tight friends with Nate, would even forgive Nadine for trying to kill him. But no, there's a surprise guest appearance of Sam, which is cool, and which of course causes the tension between Chloe and Nadine, because we totally want more melodrama from Uncharted 4 to appear in the game as well. The one thing I liked about Uncharted 4's plot was the villain Wraith, or at least the idea of him, but I guess that was lightning in the bowl for Naughty Dog, as all they could do is go back and create even more badly written villains again. This time we get Assault, a violent rebel who only wanted the treasure to sell it to fund his war against the Indian government because I actually don't know. The Uncharted wiki suggests that due to his religious beliefs, he wanted India to go back to its ruling class, but it never stated in the game, or at least I don't remember. There was a secondary villain who had such little impact to the plot, I wonder why he's even in the game. A guy named Orca, who were one of the many in Nadine's army who abandoned her in Uncharted 4 and ran the group without her. I guess it's a part of Nadine's storyline to figure out who she is after getting kicked out of her squad and losing her cash. Oh, poor baby. His little war criminal Nadine got swindled by her own man?
Oh, boo-hoo. Let me play a sad song for you on the world's smallest violin.
Honestly, there isn't really much to say about Lost Legacy that I didn't do with Uncharted 4. Bland, boring predictable gameplay, unforgettable story, and stupid QTE boss fights. I know after saying all of this that many assume I despise Uncharted now, after complaining about it so much, but in some ways I am tired of the predictable nature of these games and the lack of innovation. It's hard to believe now, but Uncharted used to be ahead of its time. The idea of blending the arts with the influence of cinema with the interactivity of gaming was a new ground at the time, which no other game except maybe Metal Gear aiming to accomplish that. The set pieces of Uncharted truly wowed people back then because it wasn't done before. And now these days cinematic games are dime a dozen these days. Look at games like Days Gone, The Order 1886, Horizon Zero Dawn, and God of War 2018. How all took in the ideas of Uncharted and made it more popular to the mainstream AAA scene. It's gotten dull and boring. These days, audiences are tired of the cinematic-focused linear games. Just look at the lukewarm reception to the recent Avengers demo. Uncharted and its own subgenre it created has been overdone, and if it needs to survive for future installments, there needs to be actual change, innovation. It would have been bad enough for Uncharted to drop its quality over time, but Naughty Dog's own other IP, The Last of Us, has similar problems as well. Even though it looks, acts, and sounds different from Uncharted, it apparently cut from the same cloth, because after working on 3 Uncharted games before, Naughty Dog can only make games these days that play like Uncharted. That means numerous cutscenes, forced walking sections, and of course scripted set pieces that constantly take the control away from you. And even after making a much more deeper gameplay with more weapon slots and actual stealth mechanics this time, it clashed horribly with the scripted section of the game. I can't say anything about Last of Us 2, but for what I've seen from E3 2018, it looks like just the same game as the last one, but with levels from Uncharted 4 because it ran on the same engine. I'll be happy to prove him wrong, but I have a feeling I'm not. Naughty Dog, let's admit, you have a problem. The style over substance condition. I prescribe you 4 ml of innovation juice to get you back on your feet. Hey, I'm only looking out for you. I'm Kim the Chameleon, video game quack doctor, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Signing out.